They told us the cameras were for safety, that they were there to deter crime, enforce order, and offer peace of mind. But what if those lenses never served us? What if their true master was control? In the scorched landscapes of Xinjiang, China's restive western frontier, a different kind of war erupted around 2014. Not a war of bullets or bombs, but one of data, wires, and cold calculation. This was the dawn of a digital dragnet, and at its center stood Hikvision. Thousands of surveillance cameras sprang up across the region, not hidden but proudly visible, mounted on mosques, street poles, apartment blocks, and inside markets. With facial recognition powered by AI, infrared tracking, and ethnicity-detecting algorithms, these cameras didn't just record. They identified, profiled, and flagged, all powered by Hikvision. They were part of the Integrated Joint Operations Platform, a vast surveillance system that analyzed everything, from who prayed too often, to who entered through the wrong door, to who simply looked uneasy. This wasn't just security, it was persecution in pixels. Owning a Quran, traveling to certain countries, or growing a beard became triggers. The system flagged suspicious individuals who were then whisked away into so-called re-education camps. Between 2014 and 2019, over 1 million Uyghur Muslims were detained without trial, victims of a surveillance state that turned everyday life into a pretext for internment. At the heart of this, who is making money? Hikvision. The cameras weren't passive. They were programmed with ethnic identifiers. Some models were explicitly developed to recognize Uyghur faces. One internal bid even offered real-time Uyghur recognition. Fast forward a few years, and thousands of miles westward. In the occupied West Bank, particularly in cities like Hebron and East Jerusalem, the script began to look familiar. Hikvision cameras now dot Palestinian neighborhoods, standing like digital hawks at every checkpoint, alleyway, and even private home. But they do more than watch. They feed into Red Wolf, an automated facial recognition system deployed by Israeli authorities. The system doesn't ask questions. It determines who's allowed to pass, who needs interrogation, and who disappears into detention, with no need for a human decision. According to the New York Times, the use of facial recognition in Gaza and the West Bank has intensified. In areas such as Hebron and Silwan, families report that they live in a state of perpetual exposure. The parallels with Xinjiang are chilling. Technology once justified as a counterterrorism measure has become a tool for systemic population control. Gaza, in particular, has become a testing ground for advanced surveillance. Some reports describe facial scans used to verify identities for humanitarian aid or movement permits. But to many Palestinians, this is just a digital leash, an omniscient system that knows who you are, where you've been, and whether you're seen as a threat. In India, cybersecurity fears led the government to impose strict import regulations. As of 2025, all CCTV manufacturers, especially Chinese firms like Hikvision, must submit their source code and hardware for inspection. The reason? Espionage fears. With China dominating nearly a third of India's surveillance market, the risk of data siphoning is too high to ignore. Canada, the UK, and the European Parliament have also sounded alarms. Lawmakers in Ottawa and London have urged a full ban on Hikvision products, citing their role in facilitating human rights abuses. In Brussels, Hikvision thermal cameras were removed from EU buildings, an implicit rebuke of the company's history in Xinjiang. Even in the United States, Hikvision is on the entity list, meaning US companies cannot do business with it. But that hasn't stopped the proliferation of its cameras in American cities, where they still silently record passers-by, despite warnings from security experts. Hikvision insists it reformed. It claims it removed ethnic identification features in 2018, that it now complies with international law and respects human rights. But software updates in 2023 still included minority detection functions. Bids submitted to Chinese authorities show the company continued offering Uyghur-specific identification long after claiming otherwise. The truth appears simple. Hikvision didn't pivot. It rebranded. The language changed, but the code, the contracts, and the cameras remained. Governments are waking up to the power and peril of this surveillance empire. In the UK, a 2021 Foreign Affairs Committee report concluded that Hikvision's technology was instrumental in Xinjiang's internment camps. The US Congress moved to ban all government use of the company's products, and bipartisan support continues to grow for broader sanctions. Yet, in many parts of the world, Hikvision's products remain installed in schools, transportation hubs, and police stations. The infrastructure is already in place. The question now is whether anyone will rip it out. What's more dangerous than a camera that watches? One that watches and understands, or thinks it does. In Xinjiang, China began testing emotion detection AI, designed to read micro-expressions and identify supposed criminal intent. Frown too long, look anxious. The system might assume guilt. Experts warn of similar capabilities being adapted elsewhere, especially as AI-driven surveillance becomes cheaper and easier to deploy. The same tools tested in authoritarian regimes are now being exported under the guise of safety and efficiency. The backlash to Hikvision is a proxy battle in a much larger war, one between the promise of tech and the peril of control. Surveillance, if left unchecked, becomes oppression by other means. The Uyghurs in Xinjiang and Palestinians in the West Bank are living testaments to that truth. Facial recognition isn't just a tool, it's a philosophy, one that sees people not as citizens, but as data points to be sorted, tracked, and controlled. Hikvision's rise signals a dangerous global trend: the normalization of surveillance without consent, the embrace of control without transparency. As more governments adopt these systems, the line between democracy and digital authoritarianism blurs. The world must ask itself, who watches the watchers? And what happens when those watchers are machines? Because the surveillance state isn't a dystopian future. It's already here.